Welcome to Leadership Talk. My name is Abby Smurl, and the other presenter will be Leandra Timmerman. This webinar will explore the topics of board member and volunteer recruitment.
Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development industry leadership staff provide free webinars on building the organizational capacity within the agriculture sector, which results in high-performing organizations. This content is designed for informational purposes only. This information is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice. Organizations should consult their professional advisors related to specific situations. In this presentation, we'll be talking about a recruitment timeline, ways to prepare new members, recruitment for specific target groups such as age, Generation Z, and culture, and recent trends in volunteering. Before we get into the presentation, let's go over a few definitions to clarify what our presentation will be about. A board is a group of persons having managerial, supervisory, investigatory, or advisory powers. Since a board's purpose can vary so much from one to the next, not all the information given will apply to every board, but we hope that at least a couple of the recruitment strategies presented will apply to your board. Recruitment is the act of finding new people to join an organization or support a cause. During the presentation, when we're talking about board member recruitment, we're referring to the act of finding new people to serve on the board. Throughout the presentation, we will be referring to a survey we conducted about people's experiences serving on a board. Here is a little bit of information to give you an idea of who completed it. The results are not without bias, as all the participants volunteered to complete it, but we hope that the 92 responses we received reflect a variety of personal experiences. The large majority of our survey participants identified themselves as being between the ages of 19 and 55, but we did have one younger participant and a few older participants. Our participants study or have studied in a variety of fields, including agriculture, healthcare, and education. The red dots shown on this map of Canada represent the different areas our survey answers from the public came from. Please note that not all individuals who completed the survey provided information on where they were from, so some geographical data is missing. Not all responses are shown due to space on the map. Board member recruitment is a process that should take time. The following is the 4-step board member recruitment process. It will be discussed in further detail in the slides to come. When you need to recruit new board members, you should start by brainstorming the needs of the board. Next, you can draft a list of potential candidates from which you will choose the right person for the job. Once the new members have been selected, you can plan an orientation to help them get acquainted with the workings of the board. There are multiple ways to brainstorm the needs of the board. To name a few, you could do a survey, have a group brainstorm session, or draw a mind map. No matter what method is chosen, the needs of the board and of the organization should be at the base of any decisions. If your board is small, you may choose to involve everyone in the brainstorming process. In cases of a larger board, assigning the task to a committee will be more efficient, save time, and prevent volunteer burnout. Any board, but particularly a volunteer board, should always be completing tasks as efficiently as possible, because people don't want to have their time wasted, and might even be finding the time commitment a bit much already. Assigning a small group to accomplish tasks, such as board member recruitment, is a good way to save time and be efficient. Whoever is selected to recruit will need to do a needs assessment. To do this, they can create a list of the board and organization's needs, as well as the skill sets needed to satisfy those needs. The completed needs assessment will not only be a useful reference this time, but it can be retained for use in future years. An example format for a needs assessment is pictured on the screen. If your board needs a director of communications, you're probably looking for someone with communication and advertising skills, whereas if you're looking for a treasurer, the more important skill sets would be in finance and math. The final step of the brainstorm process is to create a job description for each member's position on the board. This is a list of what should be included in the job description, according to a resource called Developing Job Descriptions of Board Members for Nonprofit Organizations, provided by the Government of Alberta. Your organization may choose to omit some of these and add others if you deem it important. You can find more details on this content by following the link on the slide. Something else you may consider putting in the job description are the benefits of being on a board, such as networking or skill or resume development. Someone who is considering taking the position might like to know what's in it for them or what they could get out of it. It's also a good idea to list the weekly or monthly time commitment, because that's something people will want to take into consideration when they're deciding whether or not to take the position. This would also be a benefit to the board, because it would be less likely for someone to accept the position and then realize they don't have enough time to do what's required. Something to consider when making your job descriptions is whether you'd like to have term limits for some or all of the positions on your board. There are pros and cons to having term limits, so each board needs to make the decision that will work best for them and those that they're serving. Some pros of having term limits are the following. There will always be new members to bring ideas, and if you stagger the terms, there will always be experienced members to pass on their knowledge to the new members. When recruiting members, it will be easier for people to commit to a specific amount of time rather than thinking they could be committing to being on the board for life, which I know is the case for some boards. On the other hand, some cons are that you could have someone on your board who is perfect in their position and would be willing to stay for a while, but with the term limit, they would be forced to leave, and you might end up with someone who isn't as capable of fulfilling their duties. It would also cause more work for some people on your board, because they'll almost constantly have to be recruiting new members. Something your board may consider is a nomination process that allows both current and potential board members to let their names stand at the time terms are ending. By doing this, new candidates would have the opportunity to identify their interest in serving, but also allows those currently serving to express interest in continuing. This also gives members the opportunity to leave the board should they no longer be a good fit for the position. Membership would then vote on the candidate of their choice based on the identified needs. As your board and its role evolves, having directors with diverse backgrounds will bring diverse perspectives and experiences that will be useful in the work of the board. Although it might be easiest to put out a call within your organization for people willing to sit on the board, your board could be much more diverse and efficient with a broad exploration for candidates. For example, in the needs assessment, it was identified that your board requires someone with bookkeeping skills to be a treasurer, but also identified a need for advertising expertise. No one from your organization could suitably fill both of those roles, but your neighbor studied accounting and has been working as a campaign manager regarding public image, and could potentially fill both of those roles quite nicely. There's even a chance that said neighbor has been looking for a way to give back or for something else to put on their resume. By extending the offer beyond the current board, your board may have found a perfect match of skill sets and added diversity to it. Plus, there's no harm in asking, so you might as well put the offer out there. The worst that could happen is they say no. Diversity is also important for the image of the organization. Organizations that do not attract all segments of the population often are not attractive to all generations. Intergenerational boards are becoming increasingly popular because the experience of the older generation and the creativity and new ideas brought by the younger generation can really work together and achieve a great result. The diversity of a board should adequately represent the population that they serve. Youth and young adult participation on boards can be useful, both for the organization and for the youth themselves. But there are a few things to consider before adding youth to your board. Make sure you're following all the rules. If your organization is incorporated, there are rules included in the Manitoba Corporations Act about what position youth can occupy on the board. Even if you aren't incorporated, your organization could have policies in place that would limit their participation. Any person under 16 years of age who is participating in the activities of the board must have written and signed consent from their guardian prior to participating. If your organization's bylaws do not permit youth to be voting members of the board, you could have some positions for youth to be non-voting representatives. That would mean that they could participate in discussions and board meetings to add their youth perspective, but they don't participate in formal votes. For example, the 4-H Canada Board of Directors has 7 voting adult members and 2 non-voting representatives from the Youth Advisory Council. Canada's youth policy states that almost all government policies and decisions have an impact on young people's lives, and youth have the right to influence these decisions, both collectively and individually. The policy also states that young Canadians are the most educated, connected, and diverse generation this country has ever seen. That is the diverse perspective that youth bring to the table. We will go into more detail later, but each generation has unique abilities or knowledge that make them a beneficial part of the board. Youth might not have the life experiences or developed skills that older members have, but they bring knowledge and diversity that will benefit the organization and assist in the longevity of the organization. For several reasons, it can be difficult to recruit youth to serve on the board. As with everyone else, youth typically have busy schedules. Between attending school, completing homework, extracurricular activities, and having a social life, they might not feel they have time to be on a board. Spending time in meetings, if they do not feel they will be able to contribute much, will not be at the top of their priority list, particularly if they do not have strong ties to organizations with formal boards. There are many factors that could positively influence their decision, though. According to the results from our survey, the main reason youth joined the board was because it would look good on their resume. They also mentioned that it would be a good experience to have, that they wanted to influence decisions made within the organization, and that they felt it was a good way to make a difference in their community. These are just a couple of things youth can consider when making the decision to join a board. Different organizations will have different recruitment strategies that work for them. In large organizations, a newspaper ad with the position description might be the way to get the best applicants, but often for smaller organizations, a personalized request is the more likely option to have success. With technology playing such a big factor in everyone's lives, today's advertising via social media has the potential to reach a large audience quickly with a very low cost. From the answers we received from our questionnaire, over 50% of the people who had been on a board were approached personally to see if they would be willing to take a position, whereas only 5.4% of the participants joined because they saw an ad. In addition, half of the people polled who had never been on a board said that they hadn't been on a board because they had never been asked. Maybe if someone had approached them and said, "Hey, would you like to be on Ag XYZ's board? Because we're looking for a new member and I think you could bring a new perspective that would add a lot," they would be on a board. Choosing the right person for the job might seem like a daunting task, but if you've already done all the preparation, then you should know exactly who you're looking for. The list you made during the first step will tell you exactly which qualities and skills to look for in a new board member. You can hold formal or informal interviews with each candidate, or have them fill in an application form that lists their skills and what they bring to the team. How you do this will depend on how many applications you receive and how much time you'd like to put into the recruitment process. Match the skills the candidates listed with the skills in the position description and figure out who's the best match. You can then offer the position to the person who's the best fit. Be sure to thank everyone who was willing to take the position, and if you would like, ask if you could reach out again should a more fitting position open up. Each board can create their own orientation process for new board members, but having some kind of orientation is essential to make them feel prepared. You should provide all members with a copy of the bylaws, policies, and procedures. You could then do a weekend or evening session offered either electronically or in person for all new board members. During this session, you should cover topics such as the structure of the board, the role of each member, the mission and vision of the organization, the main responsibilities of the board, and let them know where they can direct any questions they have. It could also be beneficial to pair each new member with an experienced member that can guide them and answer their questions. This could also help the board members bond and become more connected, which could make things run more smoothly. In our survey, we asked people if they felt prepared to serve on a board when they first started, and only 56% said that they were. We then followed that up by saying, if you weren't prepared, what is something that would have made you more prepared? Some of the most common responses were that they'd like a copy of their job description and of the organization's bylaws and procedures. Someone suggested that this could be passed down from the person who held the position before them, both to ensure the transfer happens, but also so that the new member knows who to ask if they have any questions. Some people also mentioned that a cheat sheet of all the basic rules would be a way to make the transition easier and faster. They also wanted more background information on the board, the possibility to attend an open meeting, and a clear expectation of their role on the board and what's expected of them.
When recruiting for a board, there are additional factors to consider: age and generation, Generation Z, culture, and trends in volunteering. Let's take a deeper look into each of those topics. When recruiting board members, an important factor to consider is age. These dates only suggest relative times to when the generations begin and end. Different sources may provide different timelines. Traditionalists, those born before 1944. Baby boomers, born between 1944 and 1964. Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980. Generation Y, also known as millennials, born between 1981 and 1996. Generation Z, born between 1996 and 2015. Let's discuss the different generations and what each could potentially bring to your board. Traditionalists, individuals 76 plus years of age, would have a great network of peers from their work over the years. They would have access to archives if they have served on the board for a number of years. At 76 plus years of age, if an individual remains serving on a board, they would have an appreciation for the history of the board and what it represents. They would have more free time to spend attending meetings or completing other jobs since they are retired. Great in-person, one-on-one communication skills. They are not familiar with technology, so face-to-face communication is what they rely on. Experience in hands-on knowledge from years of volunteering and serving on boards. Baby boomers, people 56 to 76 years of age. These individuals are in the latter part of their career or have likely retired. This means they will likely have more time and experience to dedicate towards the board and its duties. Because there are a chance they are retired, they will most likely have a flexible schedule. From their career and past experiences serving on boards, they will know a large network of people. For example, this could help to find volunteers for an event that the board is organizing. Develop leadership and guidance skills. This generation has likely served on boards over the years with many new members. From that and other life experiences, they will have developed strong leadership and guidance skills to help the new members feel right at home on the board. If this individual has served on a board in the past, they will have a better understanding of what method and techniques work best. For example, how to organize volunteers and divide tasks for a fundraiser. Generation X, between the age of 40 and 55 years old. These individuals may have more flexibility outside of work hours as their children are likely older and more self-sufficient. They will have a great network of working professionals via their friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, and the list goes on. Their life experiences can help guide the board in the right direction. They can incur expenses associated with boards more easily than others. For example, they probably have their license and are able to travel if need be. Generation X falls right in the middle of the generation who is not familiar with technology and the generation who uses technology for almost everything. They most likely can use some forms of technology themselves and have the ability to bridge the gap between the tech and non-tech generations. Millennials, also known as Generation Y, between the ages of 25 and 39 years old. These individuals will be finishing school, just starting, or in the early years of their career. Many people this age are looking for awards and volunteer experience beyond their career. For example, they may have young children and are looking to serve on an athletic board to make sure their children have the opportunity to participate in sports. Being active in their profession, they will always be learning skills via conferences, meetings, and in everyday life and work. They can bring these skills to the board. Many millennials have a large network of friends to engage. They may be just coming out of education, meeting new people through their kids, and other friends. Just like them, their friends are likely looking to pursue rewards and volunteer experience outside of their career. Generation Z. We are going to take a more detailed look into Generation Z and what they represent and have to offer. Generation Z. The youth population, typically known and characterized as individuals who never knew what the world was like without smartphones and the internet. Considering this generation to serve on a board could be a huge asset to your organization. So why should you consider Generation Z to serve on your board? As stated previously in the webinar, young Canadians are the most educated, connected, and diverse generation this country has ever seen. Although not all people from Generation Z are old enough to serve on your board at the moment, in the future, the majority will likely have attended some sort of post-secondary education. In the 2018-2019 school year in Manitoba, 63,322 people enrolled in post-secondary education. Although not all of these students will be considered to be Generation Z, we will look at a few charts in the upcoming slides. They will be new to the workforce and seeking new opportunities to start their professional career. Because they are new to the workforce, they will be highly motivated to be part of something new and excited to contribute what they have to offer. Being from a younger generation, they will possess different perspectives compared to other generations that may already be on the board. Generation Z is known to have grown up being surrounded by technology. Those individuals will be able to use technology to their advantage to make work more efficient, easier, and creative. As many boards are comprised of people from different generations, such as the baby boomers or Generation X, when bringing along a youthful member, they will bring a new set of eyes that are able to identify gaps, assumptions, or other areas of weakness that the board may not recognize. For example, a 22-year-old newly graduated university student moves to a small rural town to start her career as a nurse. She also takes an interest in curling, so she has decided to join the curling club board. The curling board may assume that everyone in the community knows that women's curling is on Wednesdays. A fresh set of eyes would be able to bring to attention that this is not common knowledge for the younger generations, and with more advertising, especially on social media, they would likely find more curlers to participate and grow their curling club, and maybe even recruit more members and volunteers to work at Volunspiels. Manitoba Post-Secondary Statistics, July 2020. As you can see by looking at the graph, there has been a steady increase in the amount of individuals who have enrolled in post-secondary education since 2009. We do not have the most recent statistics for the 2019-2020 school year, but in 2019, the enrollment rate was at its all-time high, with 63,322 students enrolling in some sort of post-secondary education. That number can be broken down further. Close to 39,000 of those students pursued undergraduate studies. Just over 5,000 enrolled in graduate programs, and around 19,000 chose to attend college. Age and gender of those attending post-secondary Manitoba. By looking at the charts, we can see that more females choose to attend university, whereas more males attend college. This may be attributed to the fact that more males enroll in trades offered at college. Now let's move our attention to age. 82% of people who enroll in university are under the age of 25. This means that once completion of a 4-year undergrad, they will likely be between the ages of 22 and 29. As of 2020, these individuals may be considered millennials or Generation Z. Recall what these generations have to offer for your board, such as new perspectives, being highly motivated, and looking for opportunities and life experience. Turning our attention to the college graph, we see a wider age range of those enrolling. Possible factors for these statistics are that more 1- and 2-year programs are offered. Individuals may decide to take more courses to help further advance their work rank and pay as an upgrade to one's career. Newcomers and volunteering. Did you know that on average 250,000 people move to Canada every year? Of all Canadian immigrants, 38% of them volunteer. Why recruit newcomers? If you have ever moved to a new community or even away for school, you probably know that meeting new people can be a challenge. A few reasons why people who are new to a community may want to volunteer are to meet new people, for the experience, to learn a new language, to gain new skills, to learn about the culture, and to contribute to their new community. Volunteer culture in Canada. 45% of Canadians volunteer over the age of 15. Of that 45%, youth have the highest volunteer rate. Canadian youth between the ages of 15 and 24 volunteer at a rate of 53%. As time passes, it will be critical to engage youth in volunteering in order to fulfill and meet the volunteer demand in our communities. Seniors. In Canada, we have a large group of baby boomers. This group has contributed countless hours to their communities over the years. It is important that we continue to thank them and engage them with their knowledge and skills gained over the years of experience. Engage people with disabilities. Individuals with disabilities often experience social barriers, physical and social disconnection from their community. Engaging this population will help break down these social barriers and allow them to feel more involved and connected to their community. It also enables them to learn new skills, meet new people, and achieve a sense of self-accomplishment. Many of the people we just discussed help contribute to the volunteer culture in Canada. For example, 4-H members, who are youth, dedicate hours each year to participate in highway cleanup. Why did you agree to serve on the board? Our survey answers. As you can see, feedback from the 74 survey respondents have been tallied and grouped into 4 main categories. 35% of people wanted to make a difference, give back, and help the community. 34% of people said it aligned with their passions and goals. They had a common interest with the board. Only 7% of people said it was work-related or mandatory. 24% served on the board to support their profession, build their resume, learn, gain skills, and for the overall experience. These results help us realize that a small amount of people join because of work or because it is mandatory. Many join because they want to help the community and make a difference or support something that aligns with their interests and to learn new skills. Recent trends in volunteering. According to a blog posted in March 2020 from Volunteer U, these are some of the most recent trends in volunteering. More people are choosing to do volunteer work in their field of study. They'll use their education for more than just their job in order to help people in need. Volunteering has become much more flexible. In the past, volunteering was more job-like in the sense that you'd show up for your shift and volunteer for a few hours. Now that so much volunteering can be done virtually, it's more convenient for people with busy schedules or that are unable to travel. Partially because of the time constraint, volunteering used to be something mostly reserved for the older generation, but in recent years it has become more popular with Generation X and Z. With all the new volunteers and new ways to volunteer, volunteer training has become more important, and more volunteer posts will have some kind of orientation session to explain the responsibilities to the new volunteers. Since one of the best ways to reach most young people is by using technology, volunteer recruitment websites and apps are becoming increasingly popular. Organizations will also use social media to reach potential volunteers. Knowing these trends, what does your organization need to do to recruit new volunteers? We hope you enjoyed this webinar on board member and volunteer recruitment. Key points. Brainstorm the needs of the board. What position needs to be filled? Form a needs assessment. Create a list that you can keep for the future. Make new members feel confident and welcome with an orientation. Today's youth and younger generations are the most educated generations to date. Diversity of generations and groups will bring many different assets and skills to your board. Volunteer trends and culture in Canada have broadened greatly. More volunteers from different generations, more people volunteering in their field of study, and it's easier to volunteer with time constraints due to technology. In the future, when you're recruiting board members or volunteers, we encourage you to refer back to this presentation to help guide you. Stay connected. Feel free to email us any questions that you may have. You can also visit our industry leadership webpage for more information.